Between Leon in the west and Navarre in the east was the small county of Castile, which during the late 10th century was slowly gaining a sense of sovereignty. She had been a part of Leon, which by the early 11th century was in a bit of decline, and then through marriage became a part of Navarre. But in the year 1035, when the king of Navarre, Sancho III, died, he divided up his lands amongst his sons and gave control of Castile to his youngest son, Ferdinand. Ferdinand was only in his teens when he became the Count of Castile, and being one of the youngest sons, was soon an open target by all of his siblings. For those of you in the audience who are the youngest member of a large family, you'll probably know what this must have felt like. Now remember when I said this generation of rulers had to play really dirty? Ferdinand was really good at it. In 1037, over a land dispute, he fought his brother-in-law, Bermudo III, who was the king of Leon. At the Battle of Tamarón, it was said that Bermudo fell from his horse and Ferdinand's men pounced on him. Now, if you thought Julius Caesar's death was brutal, a 20th century autopsy showed that Bermudo had approximately 40, that's 40, lance wounds to the abdomen. I guess Ferdinand really wanted to make sure the guy was dead. At which point, he claimed Leon as his own property and proclaimed himself king. Over a decade later, he turned his attention east and defeated his brother, who was the king of Navarre, and took a big chunk out of his land and reduced Navarre to a vassal. He even went so far as to fight Aragon as well. Now, with his power base secured and growing, major Taifas states like Toledo began to pay him tribute. Now, those Taifas states that didn't pay him tribute, well, they became a target for the fury of his armies, which he was not shy to unleash. In 1055, he attacked deep into what would one day be Portugal, taking the city of Coimbra after a long siege. He also brought the fight to other Taifas like Seville, Badajoz, and Valencia. Ferdinand I of Leon, as he'd be known, was nearly unstoppable. Indeed, in 1056, he was given the title Emperor. This man gave new life to the Reconquista and was remembered by Muslim chroniclers as saying, quote, "We demand our land, which a long time ago you conquered, and which you have inhabited for as long as been ordained by God. Now he has given us victory over you on account of your wickedness. Depart to your own shores of North Africa and give our land up to us, for there is no good in your living with us any longer, nor will we turn away from you until God has judged between you and us." End quote. Ferdinand I of Leon clearly had an army, plus he had the motivation, and what's more, he had nearly united all of the Christian kingdoms, so what could possibly go wrong? Right. He died in 1065 and divided his vast kingdom to his three sons, who immediately began to fight and try to kill one another. Ferdinand's land was divided into three kingdoms. Going from east to west, you had Castile, Leon, and Galicia. Now his oldest child, named Sancho II, got Castile. His middle child, who was also his favorite, named Alfonso VI, got Leon. And his youngest son, named Garcia II, got Galicia. To make a long story short, the two older brothers ganged up on the youngest and took his land. And then, after a brief respite, the oldest brother, again Sancho II, also seized the middle one's land. I guess the guy was just on a roll. Sancho II, after unifying the three kingdoms, decided, I guess for his own amusement, to subject the middle brother to a series of humiliations. He had him first imprisoned, then he had him confined in a monastery, he made the monks shave his head, and then to top it all off, he exiled him to the Muslim Taifa state of Toledo. In retrospect, I think Sancho II probably should have just had his brother killed right then and there. The man who was exiled to Toledo, again the middle child, who was named Alfonso VI, would not stay in exile for more than just a couple of months. Later, in the very same year that he was exiled, 1072, the older brother who had stolen his land, again Sancho II, was assassinated under somewhat suspicious terms while laying siege to the city of Zamora. Naturally, all eyes turned to Alfonso VI, who had to strenuously deny any involvement in the murder. He even went so far as to lay his hand on the Bible and, in a somewhat dramatic scene, publicly declare that he was innocent. Yeah, right. Alfonso VI immediately returned to the north to reclaim the crowns of the three kingdoms, which over the next decade he consolidated, brutally in some cases, into a powerful state that would be called the Kingdom of Leon Castile. In his rise to power, he even managed to strong-arm the Kingdom of Navarre into giving him territory and paying him tribute. He was beginning to feel so confident in his position that he even took the title Imperator Totius Hispania, Emperor of all of Hispania. The growing power of Castile-Leon made the Muslim Taifas states extremely nervous. And in the shadow of this rising state, the parillas, the tribute, began to just flood in. Now, strangely enough, while Alfonso VI was getting ever more powerful and not to mention insanely rich, the Taifas began to fight amongst themselves even more. Again, this would have been a great opportunity for reconquest, but the allure of milking the Taifas for money was just too much to turn away, and it would seem that this would be the status quo for quite some time. However, it would be in the year 1085 that everything would change. The ruler of Toledo, due to massive internal unrest, couldn't hold on to power, and made a deal with Alfonso to basically give him the city if the king of Castile-Leon could grant him safe passage to another Taifa. It was a deal that Alfonso VI couldn't pass up, and so after a mock siege, on May 25th in the year 1085, Toledo was returned to Christian rule forever. This was a critical turning point. The Reconquista had now made its way from the Duero River Valley down to the Tagus, and the Taifa states were really freaking out. They realized that even the biggest amongst them was not invulnerable to the power of the Christian kingdoms. Something needed to be done to turn the tide. And the Taifas' response would be the equivalent of the medieval nuclear option. In a state of extreme desperation, some of the remaining Taifa states invited in the Almoravids from North Africa. The Almoravids were a vast group of Berbers that had been brought together by the leadership of the tribes of the Sanhaja. They were united under their strict interpretation of Islam. But strict religious orthodoxy aside, these fierce, veiled warriors from the Maghreb owed their military power and ruggedness to the harshness of the Sahara, which they once called home, and they were going to take the Iberian peninsula by storm. In 1086, the year after Toledo fell, an Almoravid army arrived in Al-Andalus and began to march north. Alfonso VI disengaged from a siege of the city of Zaragoza and headed south to stop them. The ensuing confrontation was going to be a vicious one, known as the Battle of Sagrajas. In Arabic, it was known as Al-Zalaqa, which meant slippery ground, as the bloodshed was so great that the soldiers would literally slip on it as they fought. The Almoravids would win this fight and deal Alfonso VI just a massive defeat. But their momentum was still very strong, and they would win again in 1097 at the Battle of Consuegra, and again in 1108 at the Battle of Euclis, where Alfonso VI's only son and male heir would be killed. They would even bring down the mighty King of Aragon, Alfonso the Battler, at the Siege of Fraga in 1134, where a lucky Almoravid archer shot him through the eye. In due time, the Almoravids managed to annex pretty much all of Al-Andalus into their domain, which also included a vast swathe in North Africa. And in so doing, they threw the War of Reconquest back a bit. But, lucky for the Christians, they never fully exploited their victories, and they never led a full-blown war to subjugate the north. But even as the Almoravids were stopping the Reconquista in its tracks, a new nation would be emerging.